Very good evening, participants. I am Pradeep Hirapure, welcoming you all in the second session of today's webinar on the topic of forensic DNA analysis. Previously, one of my colleagues, Professor Shweta Parayape, conducted a first session on forensic DNA extractions, methods, and its quantification. I hope you understand very well about the process of DNA extraction. DNA extraction is the first and most important step in forensic DNA analysis. Now, in this session, I would like to explain you basic of DNA analysis, various methods of DNA analysis, and its application in the field of forensic science. Dear participants, whenever we're talking about the DNA analysis, first of all, we should know about the basic of DNA analysis. So basic of DNA analysis is the structure of DNA, or what is DNA. So what is DNA? DNA is the genetic material which is present inside the nucleus, right? And you know very well, this genetic material are DNA molecules made up of the four types of building blocks, or we can say the four different types of nucleotides, which are adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine. Thymine and adenine attach to each other and form pairs. Always these adenine and thymines present in the form of pair in DNA, double-stranded DNA, and guanine and cytosine always present in pair in the DNA molecule. It is the sequence of this pair that act as a set of instructions that makes all living things. It may be the chemical, it may be the hormone, it may be the enzymes, or whatever. Any type of molecule synthesized inside the cell, that all molecules synthesized just because of the DNA molecule. Because you know very well, we are a life science students, so we know very well what is DNA. So this DNA actually play an important role in the forensic investigation. So in my today's webinar sessions too, I would like to explain how these DNA molecules involved in the forensic investigation, or why the forensic investigator focus on this DNA molecule. So, dear students, I would like to explain what is DNA molecule and why DNA molecule involved in the forensic investigation. Dear participants, as a human being, we know the vast majority of our DNA is exactly the same and identical in terms of the ATGC sequence. Just 0.1% of each person's genomes differs from each other or differs from the individual. But this makes all the differences in terms of our uniqueness and what we should evaluate for the DNA analysis. Apart from the identical twins, no two people will ever have exactly the same DNA sequence. DNA analysis can therefore be used for medical diagnosis, criminal investigations, and in a host of other scenarios. But today, I would like to explain the DNA analysis with reference to forensic science. How DNA analysis in the forensic laboratory and what are the methods of DNA analysis usually performed in the FSL laboratory to develop the DNA fingerprint, to develop the DNA profile of suspected one or from the suspected samples. Dear participants, what is actually the DNA analysis? DNA analysis is the name given to the interpretation of genetic sequences and can be used for a wide variety of purposes. It can be used to identify a specific species. It may be the plant, or it may be the human being, or it may be the any living organism present on the earth. We can identify particular plant species or particular species on the basis of DNA analysis, but can also differentiate the individual within the species. This DNA analysis also able to differentiate the species within the particular genus. Unsurprisingly, the DNA sequence of two different species vary more than those of two individuals from the same species. That said, a significant amount of DNA can still be shared between different species. For example, as a human, we share about 50% of our DNA with other species. It may be the plant or it may be the animal. Now, the participant look at this picture. This picture is the most recognizable example of DNA analysis. These black and white images are these black and white images containing the black background, and in that black background there is a white color bands appear, and these pictures actually give the particular informations about the several types of crime cases. Each of these bands represent a different fragment of DNA, and together they can act as a sort of genetic fingerprint that can be used to compare different samples collected from the crime scene. It may be the biological tissue, it may be the any biological fluids or blood. Using this technique of DNA analysis, a DNA sample from a crime scene can be quickly and easily matched to the separate DNA or suspected DNA. So the person who involved in the crime, so that persons we can identify by matching the DNA fingerprint, by matching the DNA profile of the suspected evidences with that of the suspected crime attempter. This DNA or a biological relationship can be proved or disproved between a person and their alleged father also. Dear participants, now I would like to explain you the history of forensic DNA analysis. Before DNA analysis existed, the crime solving focused largely on obtaining the fingerprint from crime scene. The problem with this was that criminals could easily avoid the detections by simply wearing the gloves or wipe down the surfaces. DNA, however, can be collected from the almost anywhere from the crime scene, and its much harder for the criminal to avoid the leaving behind some kind of biological substances such as saliva, hair, sweat, skin, or airwax or mucus. So any biological material present at the crime scene, that biological material we can collect it from the crime scene, and from that biological material we can extract the genomic DNA and develop the DNA fingerprint. And by process of DNA analysis, we can identify who one is involved in that particular crime. When a DNA analysis first surfaced as a concept in the mid 1980s, these biological substances started to be put to use in solving the crime. An English geneticist called Alec Jeffrey first time developed a method for DNA analysis, and that method known as a DNA profiling, or we can say the genetic fingerprint or a DNA fingerprint, so that the suspected could be matched to the substances collected at a crime scene. Since then, the technology has improved considerably, and resulting in a DNA analysis become cheaper, more accessible, and available for a range of officials and consumers applications. Now, the participants, I would like to explain the basic laboratory process while DNA analysis. So you can see here on the slide, first one is whatever the sample collected from the crime scene, that sample should be, or biological evidence should be submitted to the forensic laboratory. So the submission of evidences to the laboratory is the first step. After the submission, then there is assessment, second step, and after the assessment, then there is a exam strategy, means how, which type of biochemical assay or which type of methodology we should use to analyze the particular biological evidences. It is depending upon the what type of biological evidences received in a laboratory. If it is a hair, so we can use the microscopy technique to analyze that hair samples, and we try to identify whether it is originated from the human being or originated from the animals. Likewise, if we receive the blood samples as evidences, then we can use the serological technique to identify whether that blood is originated from the human being or any other individual. Before, so such type of decision we taken at the time of DNA biological analysis or biological evidence analysis. It depends upon totally on the what type of biological material received in the laboratory. The exam strategy, after that there is a biological screening. So in that biological screening, we perform some preliminary test and confirmatory test to identify whether it is blood or not. If you receive the blood in laboratory, so first of all you should prove that red color stain is a blood. So for that purpose, we perform some biological screening. If you use receive the semen sample or semen stain, which is a suspected one, and in the laboratory, first of all, you should identify whether it is semen or not. So for that purpose, we perform some specific biochemical techniques or biochemical methods, and we identify the various types of biological fluids or biological stains. After the biological screening, there is a most important step, that is the DNA analysis, and that DNA analysis in which we extract first of all the genomic DNA from the collected samples, or whatever the sample we receive in the laboratory as a form of evidences. And then whatever the DNA fingerprint or profile actually developed, so that interpretation of that DNA analysis result, and then that result try to match with the DNA data bank, and what type of matching actually occur, or what type of comparative analysis occur, and depending upon that analysis, then we can write the reports, and then uh, consult with the uh, law persons, and then in this way the DNA based evidences we submitted into the court in front of judge. So this is the overview of laboratory process in which we perform the DNA analysis as a most important steps. Now I would like to explain the process of DNA analysis. Look at this slide. What happened during the DNA analysis? When we receive any biological material in the laboratory, after the identification of that material, it identifies successfully this red color stain is a blood. So after that, we try to develop the DNA fingerprint or DNA profiling from that blood sample. So the any biological material, it may be the hair, it may be the biological fluid, it may be the tissue, or it may be the plant part, whatever the living biological material we receive in the laboratory, from that living material we can isolate, we can extract the genomic DNA. Okay, so that genomic DNA we extracted in the laboratory, and already in the previous sessions the Professor Shweta Paranjpe explained very well the different types of DNA extractions methods, and how we can quantify the DNA, and how we can determine the quality of DNA in the laboratory. So after the extractions, then there is a DNA analysis. So after the extraction, that genomic DNA we utilize for the development of DNA fingerprints. So after the development of DNA fingerprint, then that DNA fingerprint are result of the DNA analysis, analyze and interpret, and then write a report, and then submit into the court as a evidence. So this one is the actual DNA analysis process carried out in a forensic laboratory. Now, dear students, I would like to explain the importance of DNA quantification, because you know very well, whenever we visit to the crime scene, so after the crime happened, we visit to that crime scene after long time. It may be after 10 days, it may be after 100 days, or it may be after 1 year. So after long time, when we visit to that crime scene, and whatever the biological material we collected from that crime scene, it may be the bone, or it may be the skeletal remains, or it may be the any biological material. So that biological material continuously exposed in the environment, right? And due to that, the DNA of that biological material may tamper, may degrade it. And that's why whenever we extract the genomic DNA, after the extraction of genomic DNA, in forensic laboratory specifically, we try to identify whether that DNA is intact or not, what type of quality of that extracted genomic DNA, or in a forensic analysis or in a forensic investigation, whatever the evidences or whatever the biological material we receive in the laboratory, that biological material is very small and very teeny particles. It may be the small stain material, it may be the small blood samples. So the original biological material is very small in quantity, and whenever we perform the DNA extraction protocols and we try to extract the genomic DNA, so we get a very low concentration of DNA, and depending upon the concentration of DNA or the quality of DNA, we judge and we decide what type of process or methods utilized for the development of DNA fingerprint. Because nowadays so many different types of laboratory methods available to develop the DNA fingerprint from the DNA. So what type of DNA we get? If it is the degraded, so which type of molecular techniques we should use to develop the DNA fingerprint from the degraded sample, or if the quantity is very low, so in this situation, which type of molecular technique we should use to develop the DNA fingerprint. Okay, so that's why to select the particular specific molecular technique to develop the DNA fingerprint, this DNA quantification is most important step. And in this step, in a laboratory, we try to quantify the DNA, extracted DNA. We determine the quantity of that extracted DNA as well as the quality of that DNA. And then on the basis of these two parameters, we decided which type of techniques we should use to develop the DNA fingerprint. Now, dear participants, there is a various types of molecular methods available nowadays for the DNA analysis. So basically, all the different types of molecular methods of DNA analysis classify into the two categories. First one is the non-PCR based method, and second one is the PCR based method. Now, in the non-PCR based method, there is a RFLP, that is restriction fragment length polymorphism, in which we digest the genomic DNA and form various fragments of the genomic DNA, and we develop the DNA fingerprints. So this RFLP is the first technique utilized by the Alex Jeffrey in the mid of 1980 and developed the first DNA fingerprint. At that time, the PCR machine not discovered or not invented. And before the discovery of that PCR machine or PCR reaction, this Alex Jeffrey utilized the restriction fragment length polymorphism methods to develop the DNA fingerprint, and that DNA fingerprint utilized for the crime scene investigation or for the criminal identification. After the discovery of PCR, then number of different DNA analysis methods developed by the various scientists, and that methods known as SNP. SNP stands for the single nucleotide polymorphism. Then the STR, that is the short tandem repeats. Then YSTR. Then there is a SSCP, single stranded conformational polymorphism. Then mitochondrial DNA analysis and TRFLP. So in my today's webinar, I would like to explain these non-PCR based methods as well as the PCR based method for DNA analysis, and how these methods utilize for the development of DNA fingerprint or DNA profiling from the biological evidence. So first of all, I would like to explain you RFLP, because before the discovery of PCR, the Alex Jeffrey first time utilized this technique, restriction fragment length polymorphism, to develop the DNA fingerprint. So dear participants, in which we require the genomic DNA, means in any method or the DNA analysis, we require the genomic DNA. Okay, so in RFLP, we require the genomic DNA. So whatever the sample we receive in the laboratory as a biological evidences, so from that biological material, we extracted the genomic DNA, and from that genomic DNA, we can develop the DNA fingerprint or we can develop the DNA profile. So in every cases, some 2 to 3 or 1 person is a suspected one. So in the forensic laboratory, we receive the biological evidences. From that sample, we extract the genomic DNA. Simultaneously, we recover some blood samples from the suspected one, and from that blood samples again we extract the genomic DNA. Both the genomic DNA we cut it with the help of restriction endonuclease enzyme. You know very well the restriction endonuclease enzyme, nothing but the enzyme having ability to cut the genomic DNA at a specific site, right? So the same type of restriction endonuclease enzyme, whenever we use to cut the two different types of DNA, and if both the DNA is different sequentially, then the whatever the fragment will be generated or the restriction digestions occur at different or varying sites. If both the DNA originated from the same individual, so totally both the genomic DNA identical, 100% identical. And when we cut both the DNA with the help of same restriction endonuclease enzyme, so whatever the fragments will be generated, so all the fragments patterns or all the fragments are identical to each other. If in the first sample there is a 10 fragment generated, so in the second samples also 10 fragment generated. In the first sample, the 10 fragment having a specific length, exactly same length of fragment generated in the second sample also. So this type of fragment will be generated only in case of the DNA originated from the same individual. And if the DNA originated from the different individual, so definitely whatever the fragment will be generated, so that fragments varying in terms of the length or in terms of the number also. And due to such type of variation, we can identify the biological material DNA and the suspected DNA are identical or not. Okay, so in the restriction fragment length polymorphism, in which we digest the DNA extracted from the biological evidences as well as from the suspected one and generated the fragments. Okay, so in two different vials we generated the fragments, and both the samples we loaded on the two different ways. Okay, and perform the electrophoresis. After the completion of electrophoresis, we try to transfer that band patterns on the nitrocellulose membrane. Why? Because whenever we cut the genomic DNA of human beings, so there is a n numbers of fragments actually generated, and that fragments having a very negligible difference in between the base pairs. So that's why when we completed the electrophoresis, we get the blur band. So to develop the clear band patterns, we should transfer some specific, we should transfer that bands on the nitrocellulose membrane, and for that purpose we perform the Southern blotting. Southern blotting nothing but the transfer of band patterns or the DNA molecules on the nitrocellulose membrane. After that, that nitrocellulose membrane backed into the probe solutions. So we already I explained very specific or very few nucleotide sequence of human beings shows variation from individual to individual, and that's why such type of varying sequences or conjunct sequences already characterized by the various scientists, and that's why we can use that information to design the probe. And the sequence specific probe we utilize to visualize the specific bands only, and we can minimize the band patterns in the RFLP. So after the visualization we get such type of pictures, and in which we can easily visualize the separate bands. Okay, now this one is the interpretation of RFLP result. So on the completion of RFLP, we get such type of result. This one is the crime scene, means the veil in which we load the DNA fragment samples generated from the biological evidences collected from the crime scene. And in this case, there is a 3 suspected persons. So we try to identify which one is involved in that crime. So that 3 persons, again, its own genomic DNA we extracted and digested in the same way by utilizing the same restriction endonuclease enzymes and develop the band patterns. On the basis of such type of band patterns, we identify these band patterns exactly match with the suspected one band pattern. And in this way, we can identify the crime attempter. So in this case, on the basis of RFLP pattern, we can identify the individual number 2 or suspected number 2 actually involved in the crime. Now, we're going to discuss about the polymerase chain reaction because RFLP is a non-PCR based molecular techniques to develop the DNA fingerprint. Now we're going to discuss about the PCR based DNA fingerprint. So before going to discuss about the PCR based DNA fingerprint, first of all, I would like to explain about the PCR. Dear participants, PCR nothing but the technique in which we amplify the specific DNA sequence by utilizing the specific primer, and that PCR known as a polymerase chain reaction. So in simply, we understand this PCR nothing but the one of the type of replication process which is occur in vitro condition. So within the test tube, we perform the PCR reaction, means we perform the replication of particular DNA. But whenever we use the specific primer, so that primer able to amplify or produce the multiple copies of the particular DNA sequence in which we are interested, right? So already we know the very small sequence of the genomic DNA showing variation from individual to individual. So in this situation, after the discovery of PCR, we targeted only the variable regions of the genomic DNA of human being. And on the basis of PCR, we developed the different protocols to develop the DNA fingerprints. So basically, these PCR reactions carried out in the laboratory to develop the copy or site-specific or sequence-specific amplification, and we can produce the huge number of DNA sequence of particular region. So basically, when we use the PCR reaction or PCR-based molecular markers, if you receive the sample in very low quantity and whatever the genomic DNA we extracted and we quantify and we identify the very low concentration is there. So in this situation, we can use the PCR based molecular techniques to develop the DNA fingerprint. And if we have a sufficient quantity or larger quantity of the DNA molecules, so then we can prefer the RFLP technique also. And with the help of RFLP, we can develop the DNA fingerprints. Now, how are the functions of replication achieved during the PCR? In PCR, there is a different types of steps involved. Okay, this one is the annealing steps. Then there is a first of all the denaturation step, then annealing, and then extension. So when we're talking about the DNA replication, natural DNA replication, so before start to replication, in the initiation state, the double-stranded DNA should be separated, okay, and unwind and convert into the single-stranded DNA. And after that, there is a primase enzyme. That primase enzyme is able to synthesize a small segment of RNA, that is a primer. And then there is a DNA polymerase enzyme bind to that regions and then added one by one the complementary nucleotide with that of the template strands and the synthesize the new nucleotide DNA sequence on the template DNA strands. So here in the PCR reaction, same replications carried out. First step is the melting of DNA. When we hit that genomic DNA solution, at 95 degrees Celsius temperature, then that double stranded DNA convert into the single stranded. After that, we use here in PCR the ready-made primer set and the one specific polymerase enzymes, that is the Taq DNA polymerase enzymes. So this Taq DNA polymerase is a heat resistable enzyme or thermostable enzymes, and that's why we can use the Taq DNA polymerase enzyme, because when we hit the reaction mixture at 95 degrees Celsius temperature, at this temperature the other enzymes may degraded, but this Taq polymerase enzyme unable to degrade, or it is stable at the higher temperature also. That's why the Taq DNA polymerase is most important in the PCR, and we utilize that enzymes to perform the PCR reaction. Now I would like to explain the brief history of PCR. In 1869, the first DNA isolated, and in 1985, in vitro amplification achieved with E. coli DNA polymerase. And 1988, the in vitro amplification achieved with Taq DNA polymerase. And 1989, the Taq DNA polymerase cloned and expressed in a E. coli. So this is all about the history of PCR discovery. Dear participants, this one is the Kary Mullis. He is the inventor of PCR machine or PCR reactions. The polymerase chain reactions was not a discovery, but rather an invention. A special DNA polymerase enzyme, Taq DNA polymerase enzyme, is used to make the many copies of short length of DNA and defined by the primers. And this Kary Mullis received the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for the invention of this wonderful technique, that is the PCR, in 1993. Now, what are the components of the PCR reaction? So we require the template DNA, means just genomic DNA we isolated from the biological material as well as the suspected one. And then there is we require the one set of the primer, forward primer and reverse primer, Taq DNA polymerase enzymes, and then DNTPs, MgCl2 and buffer. So the MgCl2 actually we required for the Taq DNA polymerase enzyme, because this enzyme is a metallo enzyme. So this enzyme catalyzes the reaction in presence of the MgCl2 only, or in presence of the metal ion. And the buffer that provide the suitable environment to catalyze the reaction. This PCR reactions carried out in 3 steps: denaturation, annealing and extension. In denaturation, we heated that PCR master mix at 94 degrees Celsius temperature and convert all the double stranded DNA into the single stranded DNA. After that, whenever the temperature reduce and attain at the 50 to 60 degrees Celsius temperature, in this range, your primer able to bind, and that process known as the annealing process. And that primer actually bind to the specific region of genomic DNA, which is complementary with that of the primer. And after the annealing state, then again the thermocycler machines increase its own temperature and attain the 72 degrees Celsius temperature. So this 72 degrees Celsius temperature is very suitable temperature for the DNA polymerase enzymes, and that DNA polymerase enzyme start its own work to extend the primers and start to synthesize the new DNA molecule, which is complementary with that of the template DNA. Dear participant, this one is the thermocycler machines, that is a PCR machines developed by the Kary. These PCR machines having a screen by which we can design the protocols and monitor the PCR process. Within the PCR reactions, there is a 96 ways in which we can keep our vials, our PCR vials, to perform the PCR reaction. And this machine very sensitive, and these machines provide the temperature to the master mix as per our protocol. It may be ranging from the 94 degrees Celsius to the 50 degrees Celsius temperatures. So with the proper information, we design our protocols as per our requirement, and keep the vials into the thermocycler machines, and run this PCR reaction. And your different three steps actually start: denaturation, annealing, and extension. So these three different types of steps actually carried out in within the thermocycler, because that thermocycler provide the appropriate temperature to the sample for a particular time interval. So we set in the PCR program 94 degrees Celsius for the 30 seconds, 55 degrees Celsius for the 30 seconds, and 72 degrees Celsius for the 60 seconds. So this type of one cycle, after completion of this one cycle, there is a 2 DNA molecule. From one DNA molecule, there is a 2 DNA molecule synthesized. In this way, there is a multiple cycles repeated and form a number of copies. And number of copies will be generated after the completion of PCR. This one is the protocol designed within the PCR machine. We start at 94 degrees Celsius, then denaturation at 94 degrees Celsius, annealing again at 54 degrees Celsius, and extensions 72 degrees Celsius. After that, holding temperature, that is a 4 degrees Celsius. In this way, we can design the protocol. This one is the PCR reaction. So you can see in this slide, this one is the single DNA molecule heated at 94 degrees Celsius, then denatured. In the denaturation step, the two strands separated, and in the annealing temperature, the primer will be bind, and then the DNA polymerase actually bind at 72 degrees Celsius temperature, and start to add one by one the nucleotide, which is complementary with that of the template DNA strands. And in this way, the new DNA strands will be synthesized, and after the completion of this one cycle, we get the two molecule from the one DNA molecule. In this way, we can generate the different types of n number of copies of the our target reactions. So this PCR machine not only used for the production of n number of copies of our target DNA, but also these PCR machines we utilize for the amplification of specific region of the genomic DNA in which we are interested. So this PCR machine we utilize in the forensic investigation to amplify the variable region of the human genomic DNA. This one is the exponential amplifications. After 35 cycles, we get a 68 billion copy of our template DNA. And this one is the steps involved in the PCR reactions. After the PCR completion, we perform the gel electrophoresis to separate the PCR product, and we try to check whether it is specific or not. If specific, then we get the image or pictures like that, and on the basis of this PCR product image, we analyze the result and decide whether it is specific PCR product or not. So it will take 3 to 4 hours. This one is the PCR product. We in the gel doc system, we develop this PCR result. You can see the different sample. There is 8 whales, and 8 different types of PCR product will be generated, and in this way we can develop the PCR result. This PCR in this PCR reaction, when we put the maximum number of cycles, so the number of cycle is directly proportional to the concentration of DNA. When we set the more number of cycles, so we will get the more concentration of DNA. So you on this slide you can observe here this 0, then 10 cycle, after 15 cycle, 20 cycles, 25 and 35. So you can observe that the band is very prominent in 30 cycles. So these samples in which the 30 cycles completed, and after that we get a high concentration of DNA. So, dear participants, now would like to explain the PCR-based molecular techniques to develop the DNA fingerprints. So, in our human genomic DNA, there is a two different types of prominent polymorphic marker. Polymorphic marker means what? The marker nothing but the DNA sequence which is present in every individual, every human being, but that sequence shows variation from person to person. Such type of sequence we consider as a polymorphic marker, polymorphic DNA. And on the basis of this molecular marker, we can identify the particular individual. So single nucleotide polymorphism and short tandem repeats, that is the STR. So single nucleotide polymorphism, in which you can observe on this slide, in our genomic DNA, in some location, there is a sequence or in specific location, there is a variation in terms of the single nucleotide. So you can see here, this one is the C and T. This one is the A and G. So such type of mutations occur. Okay. So this type of mutations, that is the point mutations, these point mutations occur within the particular region of the genomic DNA. And that region is very specific, conserved. So already that type of regions characterized by the various scientists as a SNP. And that type of region of genomic DNA we utilize as a SNP. Okay. So now understand what is SNP. SNP nothing but the sequence or the site of genomic DNA in which the single nucleotide mutated, and when we compare the DNA that are that regions with individual to individual, we get the result, the variation of this region in terms of the single nucleotide. So this type of a region known as a SNP. So many different types of SNPs are present in our genomic DNA. So in a forensic investigation, whenever we extract the genomic DNA, so if your genomic DNA is degraded, so the single nucleotide polymorphic molecular techniques we utilize, because due to the degradation, the single nucleotide polymorphic region is not disturbed, or very less chance of destruction of these regions. Okay, so that's why this SNPR, single nucleotide polymorphic regions, we utilize as a molecular marker for the identification of crime attempter. Then there is a short tandem repeats. Short tandem repeats means what? In genomic DNA, there is a satellite DNA, or in some location, there is a repetitive sequence. Look at this slide, AATG, AATG, and AATG. So these four nucleotides repeated 3 times within this genomic DNA sequence, right? So such type of 3 to 4 nucleotide repeated within the particular location, within the particular loci of genomic DNA. So that type of regions known as a short tandem repeats polymorphic region. And that short tandem polymorphic regions also shows variation from individual to individual in terms of the number as well as the length. Okay. So suppose we consider here this one is the 2 individuals. So first individual, there is a ATGC sequence, here also ATGC sequence, but in this DNA there is a 3 repeats, and in this DNA there is a 2 repeats. So this type of variation showing in between these 2 individuals, and this type of variations known as a variation in terms of the length. Okay, so this short STR length is large as compared to this one. Okay, so in this if we perform the PCR reaction, and amplify such type of STR region by utilizing the specific STR specific primer. So we will get the bands PCR product which having a different length. If we get a identical PCR product, it indicates that both the genomic DNA having the same type of STR are identical STR, and it indicates, or we concluded, both the DNA sample originated from the same individual. But if the PCR product or STR product, we get different length in a two different samples, so we concluded that both the DNA originated from the different individual. So, dear participant, you can see here the SNP for DNA fingerprint. How will you identify the individual, or how this SNP is responsible to differentiate the individual? So, you can see here, this one is the first DNA. This DNA originated from the three different individuals. Okay, so the individual specific DNA, and in which genomic DNA, this region is a SNP region. So this SNP region, when we amplify and perform a sequencing after completion of PCR, whatever the amplified product of this SNP we get, that SNP we sending for the sequencing, and we get a sequence. So after the sequencing, we get there is a three different types of SNP. So first sample is differ from other two sample because after 3 nucleotide there is a here after 3 nucleotide there is a G, and here after 3 nucleotide there is a T. Remaining sequence in all these three samples is identical, but the fourth nucleotide is different. So on the basis of such type of analysis, we can identify the particular prime attempter or particular individual. If we get a biological sample from crime scene, and from that sample again we amplify the same SNP, and from the suspected one, these are the three suspected ones, and we develop this DNA fingerprint on the basis of this SNP technique. So we try to compare our biological biological material SNP with that of these three. If your biological SNP match with these persons, means your biological SNP also having a GCAA and CG in this way, so these individual actually involved in that particular crime. Okay, so in this way we can identify the individual suspected one or crime attempted on the basis of SNP molecule, and on the basis of SNP, by using the PCR reaction, we amplify the SNP regions and develop the DNA fingerprint, and by comparing the DNA fingerprint result, we identify the individual. This one is the mini satellite and short tandem repeats. So if the larger repetitive sequence, it may be, you can see here there is a 16 base pair repetitive sequence. So such type of repetitive sequence known as a mini satellite marker. But if your genomic DNA having only 4 base pair or 5 base pair or 3 base pair or 2 base pair repetitive sequence, so such type of repetitive sequence known as a STR. So it is clear that what is STR and what is a mini satellite marker. STR nothing but the very short repetitive sequence present in the genomic DNA, which having a 4 to 5 or 2 base pairs. Okay, and the larger repetitive sequence known as a mini satellite DNA. So you can see here this one is the 6 repetitive sequence, means the 1 to 6 times this repetitive 4 nucleotide repetitive sequence 6 times repeated within the location of genomic DNA. Why we use the multiple primary STR? I would like to explain why we use the multiple primer in STR analysis. So in the same way, in like SNP, we again amplify the STR specific region, okay, by utilizing the specific primer, STR specific primers. So on this slide, you can see this one is the crime scene DNA, and this one is the suspected DNA. So this first STR sequence, and this one is the STR second site. So from the same genomic DNA, we utilize the two set of primers. First set of primer able to amplify these regions, and second set of primers amplify these regions. Okay. So whenever we use the two set of primers, then after the performing PCR and when we get the result and we get the two products. Okay. So after that we analyze the STR result. So we can analyze here this first sequence exactly identical and present in the suspected DNA. Okay, but this STR site 2, this sequence is showing somewhat variation in terms of the length. Okay, so the GATA and GATA, the repetitive sequence is identical, but the length of STR is vary in both sample. Okay, so if you use a single primer, means suppose these primers only use and amplify this region, so you can wrongly interpret these two samples are not identical and originated from the different individual. But whenever we use the multiple primers, so we can get this type of interpretation. These regions shows variation, but this STR shows identical. Okay, so on the basis of this type of variations, on the basis of this type of analysis, we can conclude that the DNA is originated from the same individual. You can see here STR analysis. This one is the 3 different individual. This STR1, there is a 10 repetitive sequence. Here is a 14. So these 3 different types of individual. This site or location 1 vary from each other in terms of the length. Okay. This one is the genes. All the genes are same, and this one is the then STR location second. Here also the STR region is vary in terms of the length. Okay, so in this way, due to the variation in terms of the length or number of the STR regions, by amplifying the STR specific region by PCR reaction, we get different types of fragments or PCR products which having a different length if the DNA is originated from the different individual. But the evidences DNA fingerprint and the suspected one DNA fingerprint is totally identical, or whatever the STR product generated and that STR product exactly identical. So we concluded that both the DNA means the DNA recovered from the crime scene and DNA taken from the suspected one originated from the same individual, and that's why we get a same identical STR products. Dear participants, this one is the one another most important techniques, molecular techniques in the DNA, forensic DNA analysis. This one is the TRFLP. That is a terminal restriction fragment length polymorphism. So what happens in the RFLP? We extract whole genomic DNA, then cut it into the fragments. Okay, by utilizing the specific restriction endonuclease enzyme. But in that situation, whole genomic DNA we cut it, and that's why the multiple n number of fragments will be generated. But most of the genomic DNA, 99.9% genomic DNA is identical. So why we should go for the fragmentation of other part of the genomic DNA, which are common to induce in every individual. So in TRFLP specifically, this TRFLP we utilize to develop the microbial profile. So if you want to develop the microbial profile of a particular sample, if you receive the particular sample as evidences, and you have a suspected one, so from the both sample we extract the genomic DNA, and from the genomic DNA, so in a microbial profiling, what type of bacterial biodiversity present in the two different types of samples we try to identify. So with the help of this type of technique, we can develop the microbial profile. How will you generate the microbial profile? So you know very well, in the bacterial identification, we use 16S ribosomal gene as a molecular marker. Okay, means this 16S ribosomal gene present in every bacteria and shows variation in terms of the sequence, and that's why this 16S utilized as a molecular marker or DNA marker for the identification of bacteria. So whenever we sample we received, and if that sample having a multiple bacteria, so how will you generate the DNA fingerprint of individual bacteria? It is impossible. So we try to generate the DNA profile of that particular sample. So different bacteria means within that sample, 50 different types of bacteria is there. So 50 different types of bacteria have 50 different types of 16S ribosomal genes. Okay, sequence. So in this situation, we try to amplify the 16S ribosomal DNA, 16S ribosomal gene by utilizing the 16S ribosomal gene specific primer by performing the PCR reaction by addition of this specific 16S specific primer and the template DNA. So from that sample, total genomic DNA when we isolate, so there is a genomic DNA originated from the 50 different types of bacteria. Okay, so that 50 different types of genomic DNA is there, and within that genomic DNA we added the specific primer set, okay, which able to amplify the 16S region only. So after completion of PCR reaction, we get the fragments or PCR product which is actually the 16S gene. Okay, so now if we consider in our sample there is a 50 different types of bacteria. So after completion of PCR we get a different 50 different types of 16S gene, but very negligible variation in terms of the sequence within that 16S ribosomal gene. So for the visualization purpose, we use a TRFLP. So whatever the primer we utilize in this PCR reaction, that primer already labeled with the green fluorescence protein. Okay, so that's why whatever the fragment will be generated, so all the fragments labeled at 5' end with the green. Okay, so suppose we consider in our sample there is a 3 different types of bacteria. So these 3 different types of gene will be amplified during the PCR reaction, and all these 3 fragments having the 3 already labeled with the green fluorescence. Okay, but if these 3 fragments showing variation to each other, then these fragments able to separate within the gel. Okay, so you can see here after the PCR reactions, then we digest this PCR product. Okay, so with the help, first of all we perform the PCR, amplified the 16S ribosomal genes, and all the 16S ribosomal genes then again digested with the specific restriction endonuclease enzyme. Okay, and then whatever the fragment will be generated, so that fragments electrophoresis and separated on the gel, and then we can identify the such type of peak pattern or such type of result. Okay, so we can on the basis of this result we can identify there is a 3 different types of bacteria present in a given sample, and if same type of result found in the other suspected sample in which same peak pattern is observed, it indicates that both the sample suspected one and the sample collected from the crime scene, both the sample having same type of microbial diversity, and on the basis of this we can identify whether that person is linked with that particular location or particular crime scene. This one is the SACP, single stranded conformational polymorphism. Dear participants, actually in this technique we perform the means we first of all amplify the specific variable region of the individual, okay, from the genomic DNA. But sometimes what happen, that variable region amplified, okay. So there is a this DNA extracted from the biological material collected from crime scene and the DNA material of suspected one. So this, from both the DNA we amplify this region with the help of PCR and we get a two product, okay, but both the product having same molecular weight, okay. So when we perform the electrophoresis to perform separate the such type of product, and whatever the band pattern we observed, so the both the band is having identical molecular weight and in the same line, okay. But there is a possibility these two DNA molecule showing variation to each other in terms of the sequence, but both the DNA molecule identical in terms of the molecular weight. So molecular weight is identical. Why? Because here also 50 nucleotide, here also 50 nucleotide. So there is molecular weight is same, but the sequence may vary, and such type of variations we can visualize by using the single stranded conformational polymorphism. So in this situation, we can perform the SSCP. Now, how this SSCP is responsible to visualize such type of variations. Okay. So after the amplification of this region, we get two different types of PCR product, and that PCR product is double stranded in nature. Okay. Now this both the DNA sample denatured. Okay. So we try to separate both the strands. Okay. Up by giving treatment of high diformamide and heat treatment we can give, and denature the PCR product. After the denaturation, what happens? This individual single strands form a particular structure depending upon the complementary sequence present in that strand. Likewise, this DNA strands also form a particular structure. Okay, so you can see in the slide, in the both sample, the structure of these two DNA strands will vary. Okay, so this one is exactly identical, but these DNA fragments or this DNA strand shows different structure or conformations as compared to this one. And that's why after the denaturation, rapid chilling occur and perform the electrophoresis in non-denaturating condition. So in this technique, we try to separate these molecules and we get a different patterns. It just depends upon the morphology, depends upon the different structures, because when these two molecules vary in terms of the structure, so they migrated during the electrophoresis with a different speed and cover the different distance. So whenever the DNA band patterns we develop, so we will get the different band patterns in the birth sample. But initially we get a single same type of identical band patterns just due to the molecular weight. So initially we fail to identify the variation in terms of the molecular weight, but in terms of the sequence, when we perform the single stranded conformational polymorphism, we successfully identify the variation in between these two products. Now, this one is the application portion of DNA analysis. Mostly the DNA analysis utilized for the paternity disputed cases. We try to solve the paternity disputed cases. In this case, we identify the biological father or mother of child by using the DNA profiling. In this case, we collected the blood or buccal swab sample from the child and both the father and mother, which are suspected, and extracted the genomic DNA separated from all the samples and perform RFLP, STR, or any PCR-based molecular marker and develop the DNA fingerprint. And that DNA fingerprint, when compared, and then identify the real father of that particular child. You can see here in this diagrammatic representation, this one is the father, this one is the second father, this one is the mother DNA profile, and this one is the child profile. So you can observe this band pattern exactly match with the second number individual, and that's why the second individual is the biological father of this child. Apart from this, DNA analysis also applicable for the case related veterinary, in which DNA profiling also used to solve the veterinary crime cases like false breeds of pets, animals, fake animals, species, to identify the biological ancestor, to identify the true breeds, dogs, horse, buffalo, cow, cat, etc. So on the basis of this type of DNA analysis, we can identify the real breeds. Okay. After that, this DNA analysis again involved in the wildlife forensic, in which this DNA profiling again play an important role to solve the wildlife crime cases such as illegal hunting of wildlife species, animal trafficking, animal smuggling, hunting of endangered species, aircraft, as well as the aircraft bird accident. In these all cases, we use the DNA based technique to identify or to solve the such type of crime cases. Also, we utilize this DNA analysis in child swapping cases, in which we identify the particular child-based DNA or swapped child, and then this DNA analysis also utilized for the identification of a missing person, in which, for example, the case of mass disaster like train accident or earthquake, a person body we cannot identify by our naked eye, or the case in which normally persons missing from the particular location. In such case, we can identify that missing persons by using the DNA fingerprint by comparative analysis with the family member. If the DNA pattern match with the family member, it means that the person is belonging to that particular family. Apart from this, this DNA analysis also utilized for the cases related to the agriculture crime, in which recently, you know very well, the genetically modified plants varieties developed by the many companies, and such new transgenic varieties of the crop plants available in market, and but in market with the same brand name, fake seeds or fake plant varieties also available. For example, the BT cotton seeds without cryogene and BT genes. In such type of cases, to solve the agriculture crimes, we can use again the DNA fingerprint or DNA profiling or DNA analysis. We can again solve the sexual assault cases or rape cases by utilizing the YSTR profiling, or we can identify how many persons involved in that sexual assault cases. So thank you so much to participate in my today's webinar, and now the session open for discussion. You can ask the questions if you have related to this topic. हाँ, एक मिनट. Okay, no questions. You can send me your questions or query related to this webinar on my email ID. I will answer you. And thank you so much once again.